Hi guys, this is Angel Valdez, week 3. So on week 2, we saw the implementation of a couple of features. First, I created the API, the full API. So remember that I can go to my API address, which is /API, and whatever route I want, and I'll get the data. It's just an API to return data based on the route. So in this case, I'm asking for the collection of users, but if I go / and a specific user such as ID 15, which is one of the users, it will only return that. I'm just getting a get, but if I do a post or a put or a delete, then it will work as a regular API. Of course, this API doesn't have security right now. Now, one of the features that I implemented last week was the home page. So that's a regular route within a different controller for my application, and then also the user registration. So when they click on register, they navigate to this other different route and they get this page, and they can go ahead and go through and register, and it will actually go to the database and create the user IDs on the database. I have a couple of users already registered on my database, which is in Azure, Windows, Microsoft Azure. So I got Angel Valdez, and you can see a couple of them. I'm gonna use this ID to log in and password. So basically, this week's features are gonna be the login and the profile update features. So going back to the functionality, if I click on login, I can enter a user ID that is already registered, which in my case, I have again Angel Valdez and the password. I'm gonna enter an invalid password. If I click on login, I'm gonna get an invalid login. If I enter the correct password, I will be able to log in, and it says welcome the user ID, and it displays the user profile page once you're authenticated, and it says right there my user information on the profile. So I'm able to update the user profile, which is the second feature in this week. The user can now see their data. They can go and change their data. Let's say that I want to change my phone number from a 4 to a 3. So I enter that, I click on save, and it goes through. Oops, I'm sorry guys, I have a breakpoint on my code. Let me continue the execution, and it will update that information on the database. Let me verify that on the database. I'm gonna go ahead and reconnect to the database and look at the data on the database, and my phone number should be now a 3 instead of a 4. I apologize for my dog. For some reason decided to bark right now. So there is the 3, my data was updated. That's as much as the features again that I'm implementing this week, just the user profile and the login. Now looking to the code, let me go back here to my API. Of course, I implemented my API code to support the functionality. One of the things that I'm doing for the user's profile is that I am enabling on the configuration of my application. I'm enabling the sessions variable, so I can use my session configuration. Sorry guys, slowly. So I can use my session configuration to know which is the user's information, and when I pass from one page to the next page, pass that information across the pages on the server. So then I have my tabs for the user profile and any additional tab that I want, which is going to read the data from the model, the first name and the last name, and compose the welcome message. I don't know if you guys saw that on the top area, welcome Angel Valdez right there. So it's composing that message as well as connecting every one of the user controls, such as the username. Let me find one of those. Hold on, let me close this so we have more space. So we have here the first name connected to the model data first, and the last name connected to the model data last, and the phone number and email and everything else. Of course, I have on the web API, I have support for the update. Right here we can see that I'm going to call this API from my form when I do an update. So you can see on the form configuration right here that I'm doing API users and the ID of the user, and I'm doing a post because Node.js uses the post method to do creates and updates. They don't use the put method, so I'm supporting that onto my user controller, and I'm doing again a post, but based on if I'm passing an ID, or if I'm not passing an ID, I can do a post, actually a create, or I can do a post update. So since I know the ID is an update, I already have an ID for the user. So you can see that I do an update and I update the different information, in this case the phone number that I did, and then I go back and I query, you know, if it's successful, I query that back to make sure that I refresh the screen with the newly updated information. As far as the login, let me go back down here to validate the user ID and password. You can see the login route right there, that if I display the login form right here, basically I'm asking for the email and the password, and I'm calling the form API login as a post to pass on this information. So when I go to my user controller and I match that route, I'm getting the email and the password from my body, and I'm comparing that. I'm selecting my user information where the email and password match. So if they do match, I'm getting that data and putting that data on the session in a variable, and then I'm returning back to my tabs, or I'm redirecting to my tabs. If the data is now found, that's because it's an invalid login. I'm putting a message that I'm reading on my view, my partial view. I'm putting an error on the screen and redirecting again to the login page. That's as much as features I have again this week. Last week was the API CRUD, the create, read, update, and delete functionality, the homepage, and the user registration. This week is the user login and the user profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Everything is working so far.